Most people say it's time to hire, we're at capacity, but they haven't done the work beforehand to say what is truly the hire that we need right now. Most businesses do not have clarity in the roles. I hate that that's the case, and employees have no idea what the expectations are, and there's a miscommunication on expectations. There's 4 aspects of what I'm gonna go over today, and they all work together in tandem. It's a living, breathing system in your organization. It's really less stress for leadership when there's just absolute transparency. Who is in charge of what, who's doing what, and what the competencies are for each role. And there's really more confidence in the employees because they take ownership of what their role is. You see how this is really helpful to understand? These are all the functions that need to happen in a business. Would it also be helpful to understand, oh, no one's doing that?
Welcome to Profits and Pints, where strategy meets great conversation and real-world action. I'm Samantha Doyle. Grab a drink, settle in, and let's dive into this month's big idea.
How's everyone doing today? Happy New Year. It's January. I can't believe it. And for those of you guys who didn't know, we didn't do one in December. I missed you guys so much. I know, I hope you missed me too. For those of you guys that don't know, I see some new faces. My name is Samantha Doyle with Strategic Business Coaching. So thank you for being here. I really, really appreciate it. Welcome to Profits and Pints. Woo! That's right. I cannot believe this, guys, but for those of you that know, we are coming up on our 1-year anniversary of Profits and Pints. I know, it is insane. I'll talk about this more at the end, but not next month, which is February, but March is going to be our 1-year anniversary. And I'll give you a little sneak peek, but we're probably going to do another panel in March. So I'm going to give you a little sneak peek on that. But today we're going to be talking about right people, right seats, right results. So why people problems are usually clarity problems. For those of you that this is a new experience for you, this is very interactive. So if you have any questions while we go through this, please feel free to raise your hand, ask any questions that you have. But I'm going to be talking about this as we go through. There's a few people in this room that have actually gone through something similar to this because I actually do a workshop around some of the content that I'm going to go over today. So just so you guys are aware, it'll be a little bit of a refresher for a few of you. So my first question is, do you have a people problem or a clarity problem, right? This is a really, really important distinction because most people problems are actually a system problem, right? You have problems with the people that work for you, but what is the system that these people actually live in or work in? Work in, right? Is there unclear ownership of who's doing what? Is there unclear expectations and accountability within your organization? And that's what I mean by a systems problem. What is the system that these people are working in? And that's what we're going to just talk about today. Meet Jeff. A lot of you guys know Jeff. Jeff is my fictitious sample that I use in almost all of my presentations. He owns an HVAC company. So he is a founder and CEO of a commercial HVAC company. He's growing very quickly. He has a strong sales demand and he's feeling stretched in operations. All right. So we're going to use him throughout this presentation to kind of showcase this whole thing. So there's the people clarity system, which is what I'm going to go through. And you guys have a worksheet. A lot of what I'm going to go over is in there. You can kind of follow along as you see fit. There's 4 aspects of what I'm going to go over today, and they all work together in tandem. The first one is the accountability chart. This is what's going to be created to show the entire system of the people within your organization. An accountability chart is kind of like an organizational chart, but it's very different in the sense that in an organizational chart, typically you see these large org charts with each box being a person in your organization, and it's like who reports to who, right? That's typically what you see. An accountability chart is each box is a function within your organization, okay? And I'm going to show you what that looks like. But when you create an accountability chart, you can clearly identify what functions live within your organization, all right? You can be in a business of 1, just a business of one person. It could just be you. And having an accountability chart is extremely valuable to have because you understand what functions need to be completed within your business and who's doing what. But not only who's doing what, but are those things actually getting done? Okay. The next one is job scorecards. And we're going to go through this, but this is having a clear understanding of the expectations of those functions. Once you have clear job scorecards, you can then use those job scorecards to recruit and hire and to coach and keep accountability for those individuals. Okay, so it's a whole system that works together, and you have to have all the pieces in order for the whole system to work. So first, we're going to start with the accountability chart. In every business, it doesn't not matter what kind of business you're in, there are 3 core functions. So let me ask you guys a question. In a business, if a business has really strong sales and marketing and really strong finance and HR, but they absolutely suck at operations, what happens?
There's no more sales.
It sucks, right? What happens? What happens to our customers?
They go away.
They go away. They're like, bye. Okay? Because their operations suck and they're not following through on whatever it is that they said they were going to do, right? Okay, so what happens if you have really strong sales and marketing and really strong operations, but you suck at finance and HR? You lose money, right? You can't keep the books. Maybe you're not even invoicing people, right? So your company fails. And last but not least, what if you have really strong finance and HR and really strong operations, but you suck at sales and marketing?
You have no customers.
You don't have any customers. Okay, so all 3 of these functions are absolutely critical in every business. Okay, it doesn't matter what kind of business you are. And so even if you're a business of one, you have to fulfill all of these functions in your business. Okay, one person is in charge of each of these functions. It could be the same person, it could be multiple people, it doesn't matter. Each of these functions exist somewhere in your business. So for Jeff is in charge of his sales and marketing function. And from there, you can build it out a little bit more in detail, depending on the size of your business. So for Jeff, we're then going to break it out into sales and marketing as 2 separate functions, okay? Because Jeff is in charge of the sales aspect of sales and marketing, but Suzanne is in charge of marketing. And we can get a little bit more granular with this, and this is what you would do in your accountability chart. So Jeff, for example, is in charge of estimating, proposals, closing, and customer relationships. Okay, that's what Jeff does. Suzanne, on the other hand, is in charge of lead generation, website and visibility, and reviews and reputation. That's her functions. That's her responsibility. Make sense? So now we have clarity within the sales and marketing function of who is doing what. Next section, finance and HR. Jeff has Emily. Okay, Emily is actually in charge of the finance and HR section. And within that, it's actually broken into 3 different subsections. We have admin or HR admin and payroll, invoicing and AR, and AP and bill pay. Emily still does the payroll and the invoicing, but we outsource the AP and bill pay. Okay, and you can see under here what that means. So hiring, coordination, and onboarding and payroll, bill and collections, and we outsource the bookkeeping firm, and the CPA support does all the AR and the bill pay. So even if you outsource a portion of your business, it's still important to have a box for that function to understand that it's something that needs to be done. Is everybody following so far? Does this make sense? You see how this is really helpful to understand? These are all the functions that need to happen in a business. Who is doing it? Would it also be helpful to understand, oh, no one's doing that? Might be important to assign that to someone, okay? And the last one is operations. So Jeff is in charge of operations, and we split it into 2 sections. We have service coordination and customer experience, and we have field operations for his role. Jeff is doing the scheduling, the dispatching, the customer communication, and the inventory coordination. He's also doing the field productivity, the job quality, and the technician oversight. Now, I don't have a slide for this, but you can imagine once this is all done, we have a very large, accountability chart, right? It's all, and for those of you who've done this, I've put the accountability chart on my whiteboard. It's always on my whiteboard. And I have a big drawing of non-squares because I could never draw a square properly. Okay? Once you have a visual representation of this, you can very easily see where the constraint is, especially when you're in a growing company. Okay? What's the next hire? Right? You're in a growing company. What is the next spot? Whether it's because there's someone in too many boxes, there's someone who's in a box that they shouldn't be in because they don't have the skill set or they don't want to be in that box. Okay? Or there's a box that's not filled at all. There's no one in that box. Okay? So for Jeff owns operations and field operations. He's in too many boxes here, guys. Okay? It's not a good sign. Jeff's got his hands in too many things. So we can very easily see that this is the bottleneck for Jeff. And so instead of asking who should we hire, you first want to ask what's the next right role. And that's where building out the accountability chart can very clearly help you see what that role is. Step number 2 is the job scorecard. Once you have all the functions built out, now you want to create job scorecards. Job scorecards basically taking the function, the little tiny box that's on there with the little bullets, and blowing it up into a larger document. And you say, what is the job scorecard for this individual that we're going to hire? Okay. The goal is to have one for every individual in your organization, but we're focusing right now on the next role. So a job scorecard is going to create clarity on 3 things. It's going to tell you what's the purpose of this role. So why does this role exist? What are some measurable outcomes? So you want 3 to 5 outcomes that define success for this role. And what are some competencies? So how does the work actually get done? All right. So scorecards are removing the guessing, both for the leaders and for the employees. So this is a living document that is transparent to everyone in the organization, saying this is the expectations on both sides, right? Everyone knows the expectations on both sides. So here's a sample one for the field operations manager. This is what Jeff has decided he's hiring, is a field operations manager. Okay. So the role purpose is to ensure consistent, high-quality execution of HVAC jobs by leading the field team, improving productivity, and maintaining safety and quality standards. That is the role. The measurable outcomes are job completion and schedule reliability, job quality and callback reduction, field productivity, technician accountability, and safety and standard compliance. Those are the things that he's going to measure to make sure that whoever he hires is doing what he's supposed to be doing. And the competencies, the things he's going to be looking for in a person, is leadership and influence, problem solving, clear communication, organization and planning, calm under pressure, that's probably important, and accountability mindset. So when he's going to hire that person, this is very important because he needs to make sure that whoever he's hiring has these qualities, or he can train them to have these qualities, which is what we'll talk about next. Not all competencies come equal. Some competencies are trainable, some are not. So it's really important for you to understand when you come up with what the priorities for this role are, to understand what competencies are things you can train someone on and what are competencies that they either have or they don't. So I look at competencies in 3 different buckets. For example, clear communication and organization and planning. These are things you can train someone on. You can help someone be more organized, okay? Accountability mindset and problem solving, that's hard to train someone on, okay? They are typically a natural problem solver or they are not. So when you are trying to recruit or hire someone, if you ask questions, which we will get to, around whether they are a problem solving type of person and they indicate that they are not, probably not the best person to hire. But if they hit all the other marks and they don't indicate that they're very good at organization and planning, but you think that they're a good fit in every other category, then you now know that that's part of the coaching plan. Because that's something you can train them on. Everything else is hitting, right? So you need to understand not just the competencies, but what level of the competencies are the most important. Then we get into recruiting, okay? But here's the most important part. Most people say, it's time to hire, we're at capacity, and they throw a job at it. But they haven't done the work beforehand to say, what's the hire? What is truly the hire that we need right now? We're a growing company. The company may need to be reorganized. What is the actual role that needs to be hired for? That's where the accountability starts. Accountability chart starts. Then once you have that, do the job scorecard. Not only what are the specific things you need in this person, but what are the competencies that you need for this person? What are the core values for your company, right? That's another really important thing that you need to consider as well. And so you have to start with these things when you're a growing company. So here's kind of the recruiting flow that I follow, okay? This is how I run my recruiting process. So first I clarify the role, right? We already talked about that. Then I decide what matters most, right? This is on the culture side, but it's also on the logistics side. So for example, we just hired an accounting position, all right? I knew that we needed accounting experience because this role was high accounting knowledge needed, all right? And so we decided how many years of accounting did we need? We needed a QuickBooks experience. Like there were certain things that had to be done or had to be needed or whatever. And so when we're reading through resumes, first of all, resumes can be lies. I hate to say it, I'm not trying to be rude, but this is just the truth, okay? But I'm first screening resumes for the absolute musts, all right? I'm not reading resumes to decide whether they're gonna be a good fit because it's a waste of time. I'm screening them for the musts. That's the first thing, okay? Once I know what the bare minimums are and I have the pile of resumes that are, these fit the bare minimums, then now I know, okay, now I can look at them a little closer to see if I think they would actually be a good fit. Decide what matters most and then post intentionally. So posting intentionally is really talking about where are you posting. So for example, if it's an admin position, I feel like Indeed might be a place that makes a lot of sense. But if it's like a contractor position, Indeed might not be the best place because contractors don't necessarily go on Indeed, right? So who is the person you're trying to find and where are they, right? And maybe it's not just posting. Maybe it's job boards. Maybe you want to go to the university. Maybe you're looking for someone who's at the university, right? So who is the type of person that you're looking for and where are they? Post there, right? Maybe it's a bulletin board that you want to post it at, right? So just be really intentional about where you're posting this stuff. Then screen for minimums. That's when you're screening for the minimum requirements that I talked about in the resumes. Once you screen for the minimums, then I do a phone screen. And the next three I'm going to go through in a little bit more detail. So we're going to do a phone screen, structured interview, and setting the expectations for day one, which I'll go through in just a little bit more detail. Okay? Any questions so far? Does this make sense so far? Okay, cool. Just want to make sure. Has anybody here heard of Patrick Lencioni? Yes? Yes, I know you have too. You didn't raise your hand, but I know you did. I'm obsessed with Patrick Lencioni, guys, okay? I saw him in person in Austin. I tell everyone that I meet. So Patrick Lencioni is a leadership guy, and he has a book called Ideal Team Player. And this book is great. It's just such a simple concept. And what he talks about here is that for anyone that you hire, anyone that you're looking for to add to your team, they should all have 3 qualities. Every single one of them, it doesn't matter what role they're in, should have 3 qualities bare minimum. They should be humble, hungry, and smart. And it's just so simple. And I absolutely love it that I have adapted it because it's just great. And so humble is they're open to feedback and learning. Hungry is that they're motivated and driven to contribute. And smart is that they're people smart and aware of how they impact others. All right? And so I use that on the initial screening because I don't want to hire anyone that's not those 3 things. And that's the bare minimum. So I look at this and I look at the job scorecard and I will put it in chat. Okay, guys, this is what I do. It's rocket science, obviously, right? No, it's not rocket science. I put it in chat and I come up with questions. I come up with questions. I say, I want to ask some questions to find out if this person that I'm doing a phone interview is humble, hungry, and smart based on this job scorecard. Help me with some questions. Here's some questions for this person, okay? Hungry. Why did you apply for this role? I ask that question every single time, guys. And the best part is typically I'm calling them out of the blue. And so a lot of times they're like, what job is it again? Who are you? Like, right? And so this tells me how interested in the position they actually are, right? Were they even paying attention, or were they just apply, right? And so this helps me a ton understand who they are. Or is it like, oh, I remember, yeah, this looked really interesting. I really liked this. Or, or did they do some research? Or how interested are they actually in this position? So this is a really good one. What are you looking for in your next position, right? So these are just some examples. You can come up with your own, but chat always helps. Humble. Tell me about a mistake that you made as a leader. This really tells you how humble someone is. How do you receive feedback? And then smart. Tell me about a difficult technician or customer situation. How do they handle situations with other people? And how do you adapt your communication style? One thing that's really important is when you're interviewing someone is to try to ask questions about past experience that they've had, right? You can ask a question like, well, what would you do in this certain situation? They're just going to tell you what you want to hear. They can make up the right answer. Everyone can. They know what the right answer is. But if you ask them a question about a time that they did X, Y, and Z, it's harder for them to make up the answer for that. And the best part is if you ask that question and then you ask a follow-up question, right? So you say, oh, tell me about a time that you had an interaction with an employee that you didn't agree with, right? And then they give you an answer. And you're like, oh, interesting. Well, and then what happened, right? That's when, if there is any red flags, they start to slip out. The red flags start to slip out. And so if there are any red flags, you start to find them. Right? So that's the best part. That's the best way to interview when you're doing those things. Okay. So I ask questions like this, and then I'll ask a couple other tactical questions around kind of my bare minimums. Like if I have any bare minimums around QuickBooks or things like that, I'll ask those questions in the phone interview as well, just to kind of make sure that they have those basic skills that I need. Okay. So during the phone interview, I'm testing for basic skills and humble, hungry, and smart. At that point, I should know, okay, I feel like they're hungry, humble, and smart, and they have the basic requirements. So now I haven't wasted any in-person time. Okay, and now I've narrowed down the list. We did this recent hire, this accounting person. We had, I think, 250 people apply or something. I think we did 1 or 2 in-person interviews. Like it wasn't very many, right? Because I followed this process. I didn't need to do that many in-person interviews because I was able to really crank through them, I guess you could say, before I needed to spend that time. Yes.
Who did the work?
Who did the work? Sky. Where's Sky? Sky did the work. I didn't do the work. Sky did the work. Well, that's the best part about it, honestly. Sky did the work.
Screen them based on hungry, humble, and smart and the requirements, and then once we thought we had a good one, that's when we sent them to you.
Yeah, I did the interview. I did the in-person interview with others. It wasn't just me. But and she told me what happened afterwards, and we talked through it. Okay, I was a little bit involved.
It was a process.
It is a process. Yeah, you got to take them through the process for sure. And I've refined the process over time, right? It wasn't like I just pulled this out of my you-know-what, and all of a sudden I'm like, hey, it works. Okay. Okay, so then I do the structured interview. So this is just an example of structured interview for field operations. So once I've done the phone interview, now I'm looking for competencies. Okay, so now I'm asking, same thing, I'll put it in chat, I'm asking structured questions to see if they have the competencies, with the understanding that some of these competencies are trainable and some of them are not, right? And so here's some things. So leadership and accountability. Tell me about a time your team wasn't meeting expectations. What did you do? All right. Problem solving. Tell me about a job that went sideways. How did you handle it? Communication. How did you set expectations with technicians? And calm under pressure. Describe a high stress situation and how did you manage it? These are just examples, right? Obviously, you're going to do the niceties. You're going to have like common, tell me about yourself, tell me about your previous experience. You're still going to do some of those other things, but you want to make sure to ask questions like this to relate back to the competencies, because that's really what it comes down to. Do they have the ability to do the job? The only way you're going to know that, or one of the ways you're going to know that, is do they possess the competencies that you said were required for that job? Set the expectations early. Now you've hired them. You said, okay, this is great. So now you show them the job scorecard. You've set the expectations. This is the expectations for this job. You show them the job scorecard, okay? So they know what the role purpose is, they know the measurable outcomes, and they know how success is evaluated. So once this document is known, you can use it to help come up with a coaching plan, to train on them. A lot of my clients, once we build this out, let's say they do like a quarterly review, and they'll actually send their employees like a survey where they'll rate themselves. And so then they'll get it back. Okay, so let's say they rate themselves on like a 1 to 5 scale or 1 to 10 scale. And then they'll also rate them, right? And they don't give them the rating, but they'll look at it and they'll compare it and they'll say, okay, well, these are the things they scored high on. I also scored them high on. Great, we don't really need to talk about that. These are the things they scored low on, but I scored them high on. Well, that's a place to talk about. Why did they score low? I don't know. That's interesting. We'll talk about that. Oh, well, these are the things they scored themselves high on and I scored them low on, right? Now you know ahead of time going into that conversation that you're going to need to prep for that part. Maybe come with some examples of why you scored them lower. You don't need to tell them, hey, I gave you a 3. But you can say, okay, hey, I'm curious, why on leadership did you score yourself at 8? And you can just have that open dialogue with them. So it just makes it a lot easier because it's like we all know this is the expectations. You know that that's the expectations. I know that's the expectations. Now it's just this open dialogue that we can talk about. And then it comes more from a place of like, how can I help support you? Ooh, sorry guys. How can I help support you in improving certain things, or right? Or whatever. It's more of a place of helping them become better in those areas. It's not like a reprimand. I've heard from a lot of people that sometimes I don't know if it's the best way to say it, but it's like the soft skills of being an employee is hard to reprimand, right? That's where the competencies are really helpful. Because it's hard when you're like, well, they're doing the bare minimum, right? It's like, well, they're doing their job. But then when you talk about the competencies, that's when you can say, okay, well, the competencies of the job are X, Y, and Z, right? And these are the requirements of the job. And so if you have clear competencies, it makes it really easy to have those conversations. So this works because there's fewer mishires. It takes a little bit longer to set this up, but I promise you it's worth it. If you spend the time to hire the right person, it's way more expensive to hire the wrong person. And if anybody who's hired the wrong person knows this, okay? It's expensive to hire the wrong person, especially if it takes you a while to figure it out. Better performance conversations, it just makes it easier. God, having those conversations with people that aren't performing is so hard and it sucks. No one wants it. Set the expectations early. Set the expectation early and make it really, really clear. Okay? It's really less stress for leadership when there's just absolute transparency from everyone of who is in charge of what, who's doing what, and what the competencies are for each role. And then there's really more confidence in the employees because they take ownership of what their role is. This is what I have to do, right? They have ownership of it because it's so incredibly clear. Most businesses do not have clarity in their roles. I'd say huge percentage of them. I don't know what the number is. I could throw out 90%, honestly, and probably feel pretty confident in that number. I hate that that's the case, but most of them do not. And employees have no idea what the expectations are, and there's a miscommunication on expectations. So be one of the businesses that does have clear expectations because that will make you different than most businesses. So this is the system, as we talked about. Accountability chart, job scorecards. It will help you with recruiting and hiring and coaching and accountability. It will get you clear ownership, expectations, and accountability as long as you follow all the processes, right? And you have the whole system in place for it. And the big picture of this is you get the right people in the right seats and you get the right results. And it's really a system. It's not just a document, right? You can create documents. Go create the documents and then you put it in a folder and you never look at it again, right? That's typically what happens. That's not what this is. It's not what I'm recommending, okay? It's a system and it has to live. It's a living, breathing system in your organization. And if you do it right, it works really well. I do a people alignment system workshop. So it's a 4-hour workshop and I will help you build the whole system, okay? So if anyone's interested, please let me know. It's a 4-hour workshop. Basically, I build the accountability chart. We do clear roles and accountabilities for the entire accountability chart. And then I'll do 3 job scorecards with you. So we do all of that. So if anyone's interested, please let us know. We have flyers in the back if anyone's interested. And of course, if you have any questions today too, I'm here. I'm always here for questions if anyone has any. And we are going to do a giveaway, a 90-minute strategy session. The way that I work, just so you guys know, is I always try and figure out what is the constraint of your business. What's the number one priority? Okay. And so when I talk to you, I'm always like, is it marketing? Is it operations? Is it like, what is the thing that is the biggest constraint? And so the strategy session is really around trying to figure out what that constraint is. Because I'm always trying to figure out like what's on fire? What's the thing that you want to solve first? And so that's really what this is about. And so the 90 minutes is really digging into the business to figure out what that is. Okay. So we're going to do a giveaway. Is ready with your tickets? 275. You got it right there. Congratulations. I don't think I've met you yet either. What's your name? Save the date. February 24th.
That's the problem.
Same place, same time. We're going to be talking about leading people in a growing business. So we're going to be talking more about people, but really about what can stay human and what should be systemized. That's really what we're going to be talking about. And then I already told you a little bit about March, but just as a little bit sneak peek. So we are going to be doing a panel in March. It's our 1-year anniversary, which I'm really excited about. And is going to be in the realm of AI. So we're going to be talking about AI in March. I don't have all of the details figured out yet, but it is going to be a panel about AI. So I'll get more details out as soon as I have them. But please stay, drink, eat. There's more food. And if you have any questions, I'm here. Thank you guys.
Thanks for joining us at Profits and Pints. If you enjoyed this session, we'd love your feedback. Just click the link to fill out the quick survey. Your input helps shape future topics and makes this experience even better. Until next time, cheers to smart moves and great conversation.